The Ancient Age is considered to be the most impressive and foundational period in human history. This period, which extends from the 8th century BC to the 6th century AD, covers the rise of civilizations centered in the Mediterranean basin, their conflicts and their complex interactions with each other. During this period, great civilizations such as ancient Greece, Rome, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Persia have made countless innovations that have shaped humanity's current heritage, from politics to philosophy, from art to science. While city-states in ancient Greece experienced primitive forms of democracy, cities such as Athens and Sparta built their identities through war, art, and administrative systems. Philosophers such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle expanded humanity's intellectual horizons by laying the foundations of reasoning and critical thinking. At the same time, theater, poetry, and mythology served as a mirror reflecting the collective consciousness of society. Homer's epics and the works of tragedies dealt with universal questions of human nature. With the conquests of Alexander the Great, Greek culture spread to the depths of Asia, and a new synthesis in science, architecture, and art emerged during the Hellenistic period. Intellectual centers such as the Library of Alexandria played a critical role in the preservation and transmission of knowledge. Meanwhile, Rome, expanding in the West, was first organized as a republic and then became an empire. Roman law, engineering skills, and administrative systems left a legacy that would influence the political structure of Europe for centuries. Reaching vast borders with its legions, Rome left a physical civilization mark with its road networks, aqueducts, and monumental structures, while trade and cultural exchange reached their peak under the Pax Romana. However, the collapse of the empire was a complex process shaped by internal conflicts, economic crises, and external pressures. Other major actors of antiquity also left their mark. While Egypt embodied the belief in an afterlife with its pyramids and hieroglyphic writing, Mesopotamia stood out with its laws, the Code of Hammurabi, and astronomical observations. The Persian Empire, on the other hand, stands out with its ability to govern a vast geography and its tolerant administrative approach. Wars and diplomatic relations between these civilizations led to the intertwining of cultures. For example, the Persian-Greek conflicts led to the emergence of names such as Herodotus in historiography, while Alexander the Great's conquest of Persian lands accelerated the exchange of ideas between the East and the West. In the field of science and technology, the Ancient Age witnessed revolutionary discoveries from Archimedes' discovery of buoyancy to Hippocrates' medical ethics. In mathematics, Euclid's geometry and Ptolemy's model in astronomy are remembered for their principles that are still considered fundamental today. Architecture, on the other hand, combined aesthetics and functionality, from the elegance of the Parthenon to the magnificence of the Colosseum. Religion and belief systems also formed the backbone of societies. While polytheistic beliefs, rituals, and mythological narratives were part of daily life, the rise of Christianity in the late Roman period heralded a new religious paradigm. When we look at the daily life of the Ancient Age, the role of the slavery system in the economy, the social status of women, and the complexity of trade networks are striking. Events such as festivals, gladiator fights, and the Olympic Games reflected the social dynamics of the people. The use of writing ensured the permanence of laws and commercial records, as well as literary works. However, wars, epidemics, and inequalities also overshadowed this bright picture. Although the end of this period was triggered by waves of migration, economic collapses, and political instability, the legacy of the Ancient Age was never erased. The Greek and Roman works rediscovered in the Renaissance formed the basis of modern democracy, law, and art. Archaeological excavations and translations of ancient texts deepen our understanding of this ancient world. The Ancient Age is the story of the first great steps taken by man on his journey from ignorance to knowledge, from chaos to order. The end of the Ancient Age was not only the collapse of an empire, but also a transformation phase in which forms of thought, art, and social organization were reinterpreted. The disintegration of the western part of Rome by barbarian tribes, while the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, survived for another 1,000 years, preserving its ancient heritage, presented an ironic contradiction in history. Byzantium created its own identity by blending Greek philosophy, Roman law, and Christian theology. This synthesis, which took shape under the dome of Hagia Sophia, was both the last light of the ancient world and the harbinger of the Middle Ages. At the same time, cities such as Alexandria, Antioch, and Constantinople served as bridges in the transfer of knowledge. Ancient texts were translated into Arabic and Syriac, thus preserving the scientific knowledge that would be revived in the Golden Age of Islam. The global influence of antiquity extended beyond the Mediterranean. While silk from China, spices from India, and ivory from Africa adorned Roman markets via the Silk Road, intercontinental trade networks made contact between cultures inevitable. These contacts were sometimes shaped by wars, and sometimes by peaceful diplomacy. For example, Rome's indirect relations with China show how intertwined the ancient world was. However, the most enduring legacy of these interactions was the merging of technical and intellectual accumulations from different geographies: Persian irrigation techniques, Egyptian knowledge of mathematics, Indian numerals, which eventually became a universal language. Religion and belief systems were one of the most powerful elements that reshaped societies in the late antiquity. The acceptance of Christianity as the official religion in the Roman Empire was not only a religious turning point, but also the beginning of radical changes in the fields of art, architecture, and law. The church was organized by modeling itself on the administrative structure of Rome. Bishoprics were integrated into the social fabric of ancient cities. During the same period, basilicas rose in place of pagan temples, while Christian iconography developed by feeding on the symbolism of ancient art. Monasteries became fortresses where knowledge was stored and reproduced. Ancient texts were copied by the meticulous efforts of monks. The military strategies and technological innovations of antiquity also influenced the wars of later ages. The discipline of the Roman legions reflected a collective understanding of warfare compared to the individual skills of medieval knights. Siege machines, aqueducts, and road-building techniques shaped the physical infrastructure of civilization, as well as military victories. However, this technological superiority was forgotten or lost over time. For example, the secret of Roman concrete would only be rediscovered in the modern era. While social inequalities and slavery formed the dark side of antiquity, this period was also the scene of resistance and quests for freedom. While Spartacus's slave rebellion shook Rome to its foundations, Stoic philosophers shed light on the future with their ideas emphasizing the universality of human dignity. Although women were officially excluded from politics, figures such as Cleopatra took power, and figures such as Agrippina made their mark on history by exercising indirect power in Roman politics. The intellectual heritage of antiquity has managed to resist the ravages of time. Despite tragedies such as the burning of the Library of Alexandria, the works of Aristotle were returned to Europe through Arab thinkers. Roman law inspired the Napoleonic Code and modern legal systems. Democratic ideals were revived in the Age of Enlightenment. The acoustics of ancient theaters echoed in modern concert halls, while mythological stories lived on in cinema and literature. The events that marked the end of this era, the fall of Rome, the migration of peoples, epidemics, brought chaos and uncertainty, but also planted the seeds of new syntheses. Antiquity remained a reference point in humanity's collective memory. With its triumphs, mistakes, and discoveries, it provided an indispensable key to understanding today's world. Its story is a testament to man's courage to push the boundaries and seek the better in the ups and downs of civilization. The traces of antiquity are hidden not only in the monumental structures of great civilizations, but also in the daily life practices of ordinary people. The dynamism of bazaars, the shops of artisans, and the social gathering places of baths were the elements that kept the pulse of ancient cities. In Rome, panem et circenses, bread and circus games, served as a way to gain the loyalty of the people, while the Greek agora served as an arena where philosophical debates, political negotiations, and trade intertwined. The beggars' songs echoing through the streets, tales of gladiators' glory, and the sounds of merchants' bargaining paint a vivid portrait of this period. The ancient world even had a fast food culture. Stalls called thermopoliums in Pompeii were popular stops where street vendors sold hot food and wine. Education and the transfer of knowledge were also an important part of antiquity. While children in Greece were raised with reading, writing, music, and physical education, in Rome, children of patrician families were educated in rhetoric and law. Even slaves sometimes mixed in with the educated classes. For example, a slave like Epictetus became one of the most important representatives of Stoic philosophy. While papyrus scrolls and wax tablets were used to transfer knowledge, book production was a laborious process. However, these restrictions did not prevent the spread of ideas. Works such as Lucretius's Structure of the Universe carried philosophical ideas for generations. A little-known aspect of antiquity was its relationship with nature. The Romans developed a spa culture, believing that thermal waters were healing. Greek physicians recorded herbal treatments in Hippocratic texts. The triple cultivation system, water mills, and tree grafting techniques developed in agriculture increased productivity and allowed population growth. However, man's efforts to control nature sometimes led to disasters. Overgrazing and deforestation triggered soil erosion, causing some regions to become deserts. During this period, geographies beyond the Mediterranean were also writing their own unique stories. While the Maurya Empire in India offered a state model governed by Ashoka's Buddhist principles, the Han Dynasty in China established a cosmopolitan trade network by controlling the Silk Road. In the Americas, the Olmec laid the foundations of the Mesoamerican civilizations with their giant stone cafes and complex calendar systems. These societies were independent but equally impressive pieces in the global mosaic of antiquity. Art was not only an aesthetic expression in antiquity, but also a tool of power and belief. While Rome's triumphal arches symbolized the power of emperors, hieroglyphs in Egyptian temples reinforced the pharaoh's connection to the gods. Mythological scenes on Greek vases became a visual form of storytelling. In sculpture, techniques such as contrapposto, balancing pose, revolutionized the idealization of the human form. However, while these works of art were mostly produced for the elite, folk theater and street performances made culture accessible to a wider audience. The dynamics that brought about the end of antiquity are still a matter of debate for modern historians. In addition to natural factors such as climate change, volcanic eruptions, and epidemics, human-induced problems such as the weakening of central authority, the collapse of tax systems, and the loss of professionalism of the army combined to feed the chaos. However, this collapse was not an end, but a transformation. The accumulation of the ancient world was preserved in the Golden Age of Islam, the intellectual centers of Byzantium, and the monasteries of the Middle Ages, forming a bridge to the Renaissance. When we look at antiquity today, we see traces not only of the past, but also of humanity's collective memory. The concept of democracy has evolved from the stone benches of Athens to modern parliaments. The Olympics still keep the spirit of peaceful competition alive. Legal systems are inspired by the Roman quest for justice. Antiquity reminds us of